Tonight, the major winter blast barreling east, tens of millions bracing for snow and ice. Whiteout conditions from Kansas to New York, fueling treacherous conditions on the roads. And now another storm taking aim. The double threat snarling air travel, leaving thousands stranded after the busiest travel day in U.S. history. Late tonight, President Trump's Oval Office meeting on Venezuela as the White House threatens military action there, and the admission from the White House today about those lethal boat strikes in the Caribbean as calls for an investigation into the Pentagon's operations grow. The former president of Honduras set to be released from a U.S. federal prison, while President Trump says he pardoned the convicted drug trafficker who was found guilty of running cocaine and weapons into the country. Alleged CEO killer Luigi Mangione back in court. The key pieces of evidence his lawyers are fighting to keep out of his trial. The rap battle turning ugly. 50 Cent about to drop a new tell-all doc about Diddy, featuring new video of the days leading up to his arrest. Why Diddy's team is threatening legal action against Netflix tonight. Pope Leo in Lebanon, thousands flocking to see the leader of the Catholic Church riding in his open-air Pope-mobile through the streets. His message to the faithful in the Middle East. Plus, the deadly lion mauling caught on camera, the horrifying moments after a man climbed into a lion enclosure. And the major college football shakeup, the coach who says he was nearly run off the road by fans after deciding to leave his team right before the playoffs. Top story starts right now. Hey, good evening. We begin tonight with that brutal winter blast from coast to coast, now intensifying as it takes aim at the Northeast. The system packing heavy snow that you see here has wreaked havoc on the roads. A car wrapped around a telephone pole in Kansas. Multiple vehicles stalled on the side of the snowy highway near St. Louis. Rare thunder snow in upstate New York, bringing lightning flashes and howling winds. The severe weather coming just in time for the record-breaking holiday travel weekend. Thousands of flights delayed and or canceled. TSA screening more than 3.1 million passengers in the U.S. on Sunday, the most in a single day ever. But the major weather threat not over yet, tens of millions on alert across the country. We're tracking it all. We begin tonight with Maggie Vespa, who leads us off from Chicago.
Further up Inland Road, this guy wrapped around a telephone pole.
Tonight, another monster winter storm charging east.
Another truck, another car.
Here, wreaking havoc on roads in Kansas.
People can't go anywhere. Might have to walk home.
Whiteout conditions hammering Missouri, where new video shows several cars, even a school bus, stranded along this snowy highway near St. Louis. It's unclear if anyone was injured. First responders on scene. Overnight, a rare thunder snow striking Buffalo. This latest wintry blast colliding with the holiday travel home stretch, already snarled by this weekend's record storm that sent planes sliding across icy tarmacs, littered highways with dozens of wrecks, and canceled flights by the thousands.
We actually got here and realized that they rebooked us for tomorrow.
Hundreds more flights canceled at Chicago's O'Hare today.
At one point, there was no flights for the next 3 days.
Disruptions coming amid a record travel surge. TSA screening more than 3.1 million passengers yesterday, the most in a single day ever. You said your flight got messed up 5 times?
Yeah, 5 times.
Tatiana Bakiri has been trying to get home to Toronto since Saturday.
I was supposed to start my first new job on today, so I missed my first day of my new job.
Your first day of your new job.
Yeah.
Hours after we spoke, she finally boarded.
Finally get to go to the actual physical plane.
Homeward bound, days late, as another massive storm fires up.
Maggie Vespa joins us tonight outside of Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Maggie, we can see some snowflakes there on your jacket and on the cars behind you. It started to snow. Talk to us about the delays and cancellations rising again.
Yeah, Tom, they're definitely rising again. They've now topped 1,000 combined here at O'Hare alone. You talked about the snow. This really started falling in the last few hours or so. And this latest system, the one that we saw previewed, we'll say, in our piece in places like Kansas and Missouri, it's already here in Chicago, sparked a temporary ground stop at Midway Airport. So it's definitely having an impact, which, as you can imagine, is the last thing travelers need after the nightmare weekend we had. Tom.
All right, Maggie Vespa leading us off here on Top Story tonight. Maggie, thank you. Let's get right to our friend, NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, tens of millions under winter weather alerts. Walk us through the timing of the storm over the next few days.
Yeah, this is our first winter storm during the week. You know, the other ones we've had are kind of on the weekend, so there's a lot of parents scrambling. Schools are already being delayed and canceled in this region from the Ohio Valley all the way through the Northeast. And we have roughly just slightly under 82 million people that are impacted currently by this storm and during the day tomorrow. So the worst of it today, Kansas City had about 3 to 4 inches of snow. They're still trying to catch up and plow. Roads are a disaster. Interstate 70 is not fun between Kansas City and St. Louis. And now you see the snow moving through Illinois and Indiana and eventually here into Ohio. As we go throughout tonight, so this is where we are now. And as we go through this evening, we watch the heavy snow tracking into areas of Pennsylvania, New York. This is paused at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So when everyone's trying to drive, you notice all of the snow covering much of Pennsylvania, New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire. Heavy rain I-95 corridor. There will be some ice. Careful, anyone in western Virginia and western North Carolina, when you walk out the door tomorrow morning, could have that glaze of ice, that black ice that can be so dangerous. By 8 p.m., we're done. Areas of New York State, Pennsylvania, still snowing hard, though, in New Hampshire and in areas of Maine. How much snow? This isn't blockbuster, not record-breaking. It's just the timing. Right during the middle of the day is when the heaviest snow will be from areas of Pennsylvania, New York, into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Anyone in the pink getting 6 to 12 inches, another 2 to 4 inches possible, Pittsburgh to Indianapolis, Tom. So it's not so much that it's a huge of a storm, it's just the timing of it's really bad during the daylight hours tomorrow.
Okay, Bill Cairns, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this all week. We thank you for that. For the first time tonight, the Trump administration confirming who ordered a second strike on an alleged drug boat near Venezuela, a move critics are calling a potential war crime. Now, in a rare break with the president, even some Republicans in Congress are demanding answers. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is at the White House.
After months of deadly boat strikes near Venezuela, tonight President Trump is meeting with his national security team, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in the Oval Office, discussing their next move. It comes as Congress is demanding answers about this attack on September 2nd. The Trump administration now confirms it hit an alleged drug boat not once but twice. The second strike ordered after the first failed to kill everyone on board, a U.S. official and a source familiar with the Pentagon's actions tell NBC News.
Does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Gabe. Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law.
Admiral Frank Bradley is overseeing the U.S. military operations in the region, which have killed more than 80 people, despite the administration providing no evidence illegal drugs were on all the boats. Yesterday, the president downplayed concerns about a second strike.
We'll look into it, but no, I wouldn't have wanted that, not a second strike.
Now, Democrats are questioning whether the targeting of incapacitated survivors is a war crime. Even some Republicans are promising investigations. And Admiral Bradley is expected in Washington this week to speak with senior lawmakers, according to two people familiar with the matter.
We're going to try to get to the facts.
While the U.S. accuses Venezuela's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro, of drug trafficking, which he denies, Trump is pardoning Honduras' former president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, a convicted drug trafficker, who U.S. prosecutors had said accepted a $1 million bribe from El Chapo. Today, we pressed the White House on the difference between the two leaders.
The people of Honduras have highlighted to him how the former President Hernandez was set up.
Okay, Gabe Gutierrez joins us tonight from the White House. Gabe, I know we have a lot to talk about. We just learned that meeting on Venezuela has just wrapped there at the White House. What else can you tell us about it?
Well, not a whole lot there, Tom. We have heard from a senior White House official, though, that meeting, which did include, as I mentioned, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, as well as other top members of the administration, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and also White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who has been very involved in Venezuela policy. They were apparently at this meeting in the Oval Office, and the big question is, what will Nicolas Maduro's next move be? There had been some speculation, some rumors over the weekend that he had fled the country. He quashed those rumors by appearing in public yesterday and today. It is unclear, though, what this administration will do next. The president confirming, though, that he recently did speak with Maduro by phone, although he would not share details of that conversation, Tom.
And then, Gabe, before you go, I want to go back to that strike on those survivors, right? Lawmakers, including Republicans, as you point out, are talking of a possible war crime here. What do legal experts say?
Well, Tom, some legal experts say targeting survivors of an initial attack who cannot defend themselves is a war crime. Now, the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela, but the White House insists that it's designated the drug smugglers as foreign terrorist organizations. So defending the U.S. from deadly narcotics justifies the airstrikes, according to the administration. Tom?
All right, Gabe Gutierrez at the White House. And tonight we wanted to dig a little deeper into something that Gabe just reported there. President Trump's decision to pardon the former president of Honduras. It's been met with sharp criticism. NBC's George Solis has more on how it comes at a pivotal time for the country in the midst of its own election.
Tonight, the former president of Honduras, serving time in a U.S. prison, walking free after a pardon from President Donald Trump over the weekend. Juan Orlando Hernandez was serving a 45-year federal prison sentence after being convicted on drugs and weapons smuggling charges just last year. Word reaching his wife and adult children at their home in the country's capital.
Juan Orlando volverá, volverá.
On Truth Social, Mr. Trump saying Hernandez was treated very harshly and unfairly. On Sunday, defending the decision aboard Air Force One.
Well, I was told, I was asked by Honduras, many of the people of Honduras, they said it was a Biden setup. I don't mean Biden. Look, Biden didn't know he was alive, but it was the people that surround the Resolute desk, surround Biden when he was there, which was about very little time. And the people of Honduras really thought he was set up and it was a terrible thing. He was the president of the country. And they basically said he was a drug dealer because he was the president of the country. And they said it was a Biden administration setup. And I looked at the facts and I agreed with them.
The pardon drawing harsh criticisms on both sides of the aisle as tensions continue to ramp up between the U.S. and Venezuela, specifically its leader, Nicolas Maduro, who Trump has accused of leading a drug cartel. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana posting on X, "Why would we want to pardon this guy and then go after Maduro for running drugs into the United States? Lock up every drug runner. Don't understand why he is being pardoned." Democratic Virginia Senator Tim Kaine had this to say on CBS's Face the Nation.
He was the leader of one of the largest criminal enterprises that has ever been subject to a conviction in U.S. courts. And less than 1 year into a sentence, President Trump is pardoning him, suggesting that President Trump cares nothing about narco-trafficking.
Tonight, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York declining to comment, while one of Hernandez's attorneys saying, "A great injustice has been rightened, and we are so hopeful for the future partnership of the United States and Honduras." Hernandez had been appealing his conviction while serving time, and for years refuted allegations saying,
"Reitero mi rechazo total en nombre del pueblo hondureño al señalamiento que nuestro país es un narcoestado."
He was ultimately detained in 2022, appearing shackled and paraded before cameras, arrested in his home and then extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. The pardon promise comes on the same weekend millions of Hondurans went to the polls to elect their new president.
And with that, George Solis joins us live from Miami. George, President Trump weighing in on that close presidential race, did it make an impact?
Yeah, Tom, that remains to be seen. But let's take a look at the two candidates leading right now. And what's basically a tie. Right now, you have the Trump-backed candidate, Nasri Asfoura, and Salvador Nasrallah. Now, Asfoura belongs to the same party Hernandez did, who once had the support of the U.S. and became wildly unpopular by the end of his presidency. Now, as far as the other two candidates, including Nasrallah, well, they've denounced the Trump endorsement, but how voters will view it, it's still going to be decided, Tom.
All right, George Solis for us. George, we thank you for that. A lot of things happening in Latin America, and I want to bring in our guest tonight, Will Freeman, to break down what it all could mean. He's a fellow for Latin American Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Will, I thank you for being here. There's a lot to talk about. I want to start with Venezuela. Do you think President Trump's endgame here is building up enough pressure to strike some sort of deal with Maduro, or is he going after regime change?
I think regime change would definitely be his number one priority or his top preference there. But is that going to be possible? I doubt it. We've been seeing this pressure campaign now build for weeks. They've certainly done a lot of saber rattling, a lot of psyops. We're still not seeing the split inside the Venezuelan military. Nobody yet seems willing to turn on Maduro and oust him. So it's a question, where does it escalate next? Do we see land strikes? Is that the next gambit? Do we see an attempt to kill Maduro or take him out directly? Or, as you suggested, do we see a deal? I think ultimately Trump campaigned on an end to forever wars. I don't think he wants to put U.S. boots on the ground. I don't think that his party would go behind him on that in Venezuela. So I do think we'll see a deal ultimately. As you mentioned
the military still behind Maduro. He also has the civilian military that is armed as well, that also has his back. What would a regime change essentially look like, though, if theoretically they were able to take out Maduro, whether he leaves on his own doing or something happens to him?
It's really an open question. I mean, look, on the one hand, you do have the majority, the great mass of the Venezuelan people, desperate for change. They voted for it last year, voted in the opposition candidate by a landslide. Maduro simply stole the vote. So I think we know that most people would support it. And in fact, what's interesting, you actually see in polling in Latin America, U.S. intervention in Venezuela is more popular than in the United States itself. But all that said, it could get really messy. It could be unpredictable. It could be chaotic. You'd have, on the one hand, a military that would be very afraid of being prosecuted, would want to hold on to as much power as possible. You could have infighting between different parts of the military. And, you could have an attempt to transfer power to the opposition and then actually see power usurped by a figure close to Maduro or by a military man himself. So I really think it would be a Pandora's box. And that may be another consideration holding back the White House here.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about this pardon of the former Honduran president and President Trump trying to paint this as an over-prosecution, that they came after him just because he was a leader of Honduras. The prosecution of that president was pretty clear, and there were some sort of important evidence and bold statements made by him that led to his conviction, correct?
Absolutely correct. I mean, the standards of our own Department of Justice are a bit higher than the president is claiming there. There was huge amounts of evidence gathered for this case. We're talking about multiple years of investigation, actually under Trump's first term and under Biden, that led to this historic conviction. And when we're hearing these claims that Maduro is a major drug trafficker, I mean, no doubt the Venezuelan regime is complicit in drug trafficking. But the amount of cocaine moving through Honduras, honestly, it puts it to shame. It's a much more significant drug route, especially for moving drugs to the United States. So the idea that we're just releasing one of the biggest leaders, biggest accomplices in this and sending him back, it completely calls the bluff that this is not a serious war on organized crime. That is not what we're seeing from this administration. They may want to present it that way, but it's certainly not what we're seeing in practice.
Going back to Venezuela for a moment here, if Maduro is taken out, there have been several opposition leaders over the years that have gotten very popular in the U.S. and around the world, one just winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Is that something that would be an option for the people of Venezuela, or they'd have to have open and free elections before that time?
I think it would be an option for the people of Venezuela. I mean, I think many of them would feel that they voted for President Edmundo Gonzalez, and behind him, the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, who's really the figurehead of the opposition, just won the Nobel Peace Prize. But unfortunately, the relevant question here is not, is it an option for the Venezuelan people? The real power holders, the real ones who are going to make the decision, are the guys with guns. So is the military going to be willing to accept Maria Corina Machado or Edmundo Gonzalez presidency? And I think, unfortunately, the answer is probably no. Usually when we see democratic transitions from military regimes anywhere in the world, but especially in Latin America, the military wants guarantees that the new civilian government coming in won't prosecute them, will share power with them, will keep their privileges, and in this case, their illicit revenues intact. Now, those are all things that the opposition, Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez, have straightforwardly said they're not going to do. So I don't see how we'd see the military accept that in Venezuela. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to find some kind of different path forward.
Will Freeman, we thank you for joining Top Story tonight and all of your analysis. Okay, now to our other major headline tonight, those high-stakes talks to end the war in Ukraine. Key U.S. officials will meet with Russian President Putin tomorrow in Moscow, and NBC's Richard Engel is on the ground in Ukraine where the strikes have not stopped.
Today, a missile strike without warning in the city of Dnipro. 4 civilians were killed, according to local officials. Ukraine is under diplomatic pressure, too. Ukrainian and U.S. officials met again this weekend to hammer out a peace plan to end the war. Ukraine's President Zelensky today in Paris, seeking European support. I will be honest, the territorial issue is the most complicated, he said. Russia occupies about 20% of Ukraine. President Putin is insisting Ukraine surrender it all and more.
This small village was hit by Russian missiles, and afterwards pretty much everyone left. And there are ghost towns like this one all over Ukraine right now. So Ukrainians want the end of this. But they say they also can't accept humiliation or capitulation, believing it would only encourage Russia to do worse.
In the village of Nechayane, I found Katerina Volodymyrivna, who's lived here for 70 years. And now lives alone with her cats. No power or water. They stay warm burning sticks she collects.
Do you think the war is going to finish, or do you think that we're just in the middle of it?
say Putin.
Everyone is saying that Putin will win, but I don't know, she says.
President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, is due to meet with President Putin in Moscow tomorrow to discuss the peace plan. Tom?
All right, Richard Engel for us. Richard, thank you. And we are back in a moment with a key hearing for Luigi Mangione, the man accused of shooting and killing a healthcare CEO. Prosecutors playing the 911 call that helped bring him into custody. What it could mean for the case. Plus, a look at the new explosive documentary about the rise and fall of Sean Diddy Combs, what rival rapper 50 Cent told us about why he decided to produce it. And the deadly encounter at a zoo in Brazil. Did you see this? A man mauled by a lion after climbing into the enclosure. What happened? Stay with us. We're back now with the closely watched Luigi Mangione hearing in New York City. His defense team fighting to keep critical evidence out of his trial for the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Stephanie Gosk was in the courtroom as they heard 911 audio for the first time.
Tonight, new details about accused killer Luigi Mangione's arrest in a Pennsylvania McDonald's nearly a year ago. The Ivy League grad arriving in New York State Court today with permission to wear civilian clothes. During the pretrial hearing, they played the 911 call placed by the McDonald's manager publicly for the first time. Customers thought he looked suspicious, the manager told the operator, adding, "He looks like the CEO shooter in New York, and they are really upset." At one point, she says, "I don't know what to do here, guys." Mangione pleaded not guilty to state and federal murder charges. His defense team is in court this week hoping to get critical pieces of evidence thrown out before going to trial, including everything discovered in his backpack in that McDonald's, a gun, bullets, and Mangione's alleged writings. Prosecutors say he wrote someone should whack the CEO. Mangione's defense argues the backpack was illegally searched inside the McDonald's without a warrant, and there was a delay in reading his Miranda rights. Prosecutors say the search was justified, in part because police were concerned for their safety.
How difficult is it to have evidence actually thrown out before trial?
It's an uphill battle for defendants. And the reason is, even though a warrantless search is generally unconstitutional, there are so many exceptions.
Also taking the stand today, a Pennsylvania prison guard who says he had long conversations with Mangione while the accused murderer was under constant watch after being arrested. According to the guard, they discussed how Brian Thompson's murder was being reported. Also part of the conversation, healthcare coverage, specifically the differences between private and universal care.
All right, Stephanie Goss joins us now from outside the New York City courthouse. Steph, you were in court and you saw security cam footage that hasn't been released to the public yet. Tell our viewers what you saw.
Yeah, really interesting, Tom. So Mangione was in that McDonald's for about an hour and a half, roughly, and the security footage follows him throughout that time in the McDonald's. When he walks through the door, when he places his order, he goes to the bathroom, he chooses a table, and then he's confronted by police. And while he is being questioned, Tom, he sits there and calmly keeps eating. It is remarkable to see. Keep in mind that at that point, prosecutors say he had been on the run for 5 days, Tom.
Trying to keep us cool there. All right, Stephanie Goss for us tonight. Stephanie, thank you. I want to bring in our good friend, NBC News legal analyst, Danny Savalos. Danny, the defense wants these critical pieces of evidence thrown out, the items in the backpack, what was said to police. Is that going to happen?
There are two different things going on here. They're trying to suppress the statements and the items in the backpack. Both of these are uphill battles. Defense attorneys like me file these motions all the time. They are rarely granted. So for the statements, the key here is, was he in custody and was he being interrogated? Tom, I can't tell you how much Americans misunderstand the Miranda rule and the idea that you have to be told everything you say can be used against you.
It's in movies. Yeah.
Right. The key is they only need to Mirandize you when you are in custody and being interrogated. So the key analysis is, what did the police believe? Did they believe that they had Luigi Mangione? Did they believe they had a shooter? And was he in custody? That's why there's so much made of that picture we saw up there of him in the corner and with police around him, because the defense is arguing that he did not feel free to leave in that scenario. And that might be a compelling argument right there.
Is the court receptive to the investigators, the prosecution's arguments that, hey, these cops were maybe a little nervous. They didn't know if there was a bomb in the bag. They didn't know if he was going to take off running. Does that kind of stuff hold up in court?
Yes and no. I mean, the bottom line is, did they violate the Constitution? And we know, for example, police don't, every time they talk to a citizen, shout the Miranda warnings. There's a gray area When it shifts from just a question and answer to, I believe this is a suspect and I'm asking him questions, then you have to give those Miranda warnings. Similarly with the items in the backpack. Yes, they were going to likely arrest him, but did they have probable cause? Did they have an exception to the warrant requirement? Because the Constitution says you need a warrant. But as Misty said in that package, there are tons of exceptions to that warrant requirement. A search incident to arrest, exigent circumstances. But again, those are gray areas, or more specifically, they are highly fact intensive. Every situation is different. So if the police made a mistake, the bottom line is, did it violate the Constitution?
Danny, remind us, the legal team for Luigi Mangione, they're good lawyers. They're experienced trial lawyers.
Very good.
So are they just trying to reach for everything as good defense lawyers, or do you think they have opportunities here?
It is our sworn duty as defense attorneys to try everything that we think even has an outside chance. Because even if you lose on appeal, you might get a second chance. And look, when it comes to motions to suppress evidence, here's the reality, Tom. Here's what a lot of people won't tell you. Judges do not like to grant them. Why? Yeah. Because it takes the case away from the prosecution. In many instances, by the way, in this case, even if both motions got granted, the case would survive. For example, they have other evidence. The only thing this does is suppress the ill-gotten evidence. They have other evidence in the form of video of the shooting, just to give you an Exhibit A. Yeah. But there are plenty of other pieces of evidence. This would be a blow, but it wouldn't be a fatal blow to the prosecution.
Danny Savalas for us. Danny, we appreciate that. Coming up on Top Story tonight, gunfire erupting at a birthday party in California, leaving 4 dead and several others hurt. The latest on the search for suspects tonight. Plus, Coach Lane Kiffin speaking out after his stunning departure from Ole Miss, with the coach revealed about upset fans trying to run him off the road. We're back now with the urgent manhunt tonight in California. Police searching for a suspect that opened fire at a child's birthday party in the city of Stockton. 4 people were killed in the shooting, 3 of them kids. NBC's Steve Patterson has more.
Mere minutes after the senseless mass shooting that claimed 4 young lives, San Joaquin Sheriff Patrick Withrow says he dedicated himself and his deputies to one task.
The mission is to hunt down the animals that did this.
I have 1 down. The CPR is already been started on.
The shooting, horrifying. A hail of gunfire inside a children's birthday party. 4 killed in the crossfire, including 3 children ages 8, 9, and 14.
And you walk onto a scene like this, and there are children laying there, and it still just shocks the conscience.
11 others also injured. It happened Saturday night. More than 100 people packed into this banquet hall as shots rang out. The Stockton Unified School superintendent sharing one of their students was killed, saying our community is grieving. The sheriff now suspects there may have been more than one shooter. He says a pair of weapons were collected from the roof of the building.
We don't know if they were related to this crime. And it appears that handguns may have been used in this crime.
Stockton's mayor says some of the people at the party had ties to gangs.
From what I understand, it was due to a beef between individuals, and they wanted to send a message.
Steve Patterson joins us tonight from Stockton. Steve, we know this manhunt is ongoing. Where do investigators go from here, and how do police know they're looking for multiple shooters?
Well, Tom, we know investigators are still sorting through the evidence that was removed from the scene. We know for a fact, in speaking with the sheriff, that they're still processing some of the ballistics that were left on scene, trying to figure out what kind of weapon was used. Was it one of the weapons that was apparently left on scene? We don't know how or if there were multiple shooters or why the theory is. We do know that investigators still talking to witnesses in the area. That may be a part of it. And one last thing, we know investigators reaching out to the public now, a $25,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest. Tom?
All right, Steve Patterson on that case tonight for us. Steve, we thank you. Now to Brazil, where a man was mauled to death by a lion after he climbed into its enclosure at a zoo. The terrifying incident captured on camera. Jesse Kirsch has this one, and we want to warn you, some of the images are disturbing.
Watch this man dangling from a tree. A female lion is just feet below. As the man slides down, the lioness begins to claw. And when the man is close enough, the animal pounces, dragging him to the ground. You can see the man emerge from the vegetation briefly. In less than a minute, the struggle appears to be over. The zoo says the man was killed. A worker appears to spray a fire extinguisher to make the lioness move away. Today, the zoo known as Bica in eastern Brazil posting this video of the lioness, who's named Leona. Speaking Portuguese, this woman, identified as the zoo's biologist, says the lioness simply displayed natural behavior for her species. According to NBC News' translation, she adds, at no point did the idea of putting the animal down cross our minds. This video shows the man scaling the enclosure's fence line. On Instagram, the zoo writing in Portuguese that Sunday morning, a man deliberately entered the lioness's enclosure, resulting in his death. The statement adding, we express our solidarity and condolences to the family and friends of the man who has not yet been identified. In another video posted by the zoo, this man, identified as the zoo's veterinarian, says in Portuguese that the enclosure meets and exceeds all safety requirements. He adds, there are some situations that simply cannot be predicted.
Okay, Jesse Kirsch joins us tonight. Jesse, you know, the zoo there being pretty clear that they were not going to euthanize the lion. What happens to the animal now?
Yeah, so Tom, what we're told is the animal is now being watched even more closely than it was before. That is according to that biologist who you saw in the piece there. And that member of the zoo's team says that they are going to be watching this animal's behavior. This is part of a protocol that they go through after an animal interacts with a human. And they say that the animal will not be back in the enclosure for the public to see until they're 100% sure about its behavior being ready, Tom.
And then, I mean, this is such a horrific scene. That zoo is still open, or is it that they have to close because of this?
The zoo said that they immediately closed once this incident was confirmed, and that they were going to be remaining closed while the investigations played out. They had posted multiple times yesterday. We saw them post again today. We haven't heard any update on if the zoo is ready to be reopened, when that might be happening. But clearly, Tom, the zoo sharing a good amount of information about this, trying to be very upfront about getting messaging out there as opposed to just putting out a quick statement and kind of just moving on. They are continuing to update on this, Tom.
Okay, Jesse Kirsch on that story tonight for us. Jesse, we thank you. Time now for Top Stories news feed and a look at the other headlines around the country. We start with a win for Megan Thee Stallion in her civil defamation case. A Florida jury siding with the rapper, agreeing that a popular blogger defamed and harassed her after she was shot in 2020 by R&B artist Tory Lanez. Jurors finding that Milagro Cooper encouraged her social media followers to view a sexually explicit deepfake video of Megan Thee Stallion. She was awarded $59,000. And a manhunt is on in Georgia after an inmate escaped custody from a hospital, stole an SUV, then crashed it in downtown Atlanta before fleeing the scene on foot. His name is Timothy Shane. Sheriff's officials say he could be considered armed and dangerous. He was reportedly transferred to the hospital after a suicide attempt. In jail, they say he has a history of felony drug and weapon charges. Dramatic video showing a man jumping into action to help save a little girl. Look at this. A family's home in Los Angeles erupted into flames. Luckily, everyone was able to get out alive. Fire officials say it appears to have started after nearby trees caught fire. And a Shopify hit with a major outage, leaving some businesses unable to manage Cyber Monday sales. The massive online shopping platform says companies had issues accessing key systems. We're told the services are now fixed. Overall, Americans are expected to spend more than $14 billion today, up about 6% from last year, according to Adobe Analytics. Okay, we're turning now to the major shakeup in college football. Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin announcing he's taking his talents across the SEC to LSU, leaving the 7th-ranked team in the nation for its conference rival just before playoffs are set to begin. Ole Miss fans letting him hear it as he departed from the Oxford airport. Kiffin's new contract, a 7-year deal worth at least $91 million. That, according to ESPN. At his introductory press conference today, he talked about how he needed a police escort just to leave the state of Mississippi.
So many people get emotional, like that, and they change like that because we spent 6 years there, and that airport scene, and Knox and I driving, and people trying to run us off the road, man, and the things they said to us.
For more Front Office Sports, host Baker Machado, good friend of Top Stories, back with us. Baker, so good to talk to you. So for viewers who don't live and breathe college football, let's break down why this move has rocked the college football world, right? Ole Miss ranked 7th in the country following that Friday night rout of rival Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. They have a real playoff shot this year, but any playoff picture now muddled without Coach Kiffin. Is that true?
That is so true, Tom. And he even had wanted to coach Ole Miss throughout the last of the college football playoffs, hopefully guiding them to a national championship. But he said in a statement over the weekend when he took the LSU job that Ole Miss would not allow him to do that, which is why Ole Miss hired their defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, to officially take over, not on an interim basis, but for the foreseeable future. Here, essentially trying to lock down some sort of stability for the team as they go into the college football playoff here, Tom.
For Kiffin's part, right, he says that Ole Miss rejected his request to stick around for the playoffs. Why accept this job now while there is still playoff football to be played? I mean, you could be cynical here and say LSU kind of knew what they were doing.
Totally, Tom. And look, LSU is not even in the conversation right now for the college football playoffs. So all the more reason for Lane Kiffin to want to coach Ole Miss, given the stakes that are happening here. But for Ole Miss, why would you want Lane Kiffin to be on the sideline, given the fact that they're in the same conference in the SEC, and you want to sort of turn the page from this incredibly tumultuous situation with Lane Kiffin, where he was going, be it LSU, Florida, all these other schools, was hanging over the heads of Ole Miss for quite some time. And now essentially Ole Miss saying we want to turn the page and move on from Lane Kiffin here.
Yeah, and being cynical here, they're still recruiting. There's still students who are going to be going to these universities and choosing between Ole Miss and LSU, and the timing is important. So it kind of does make sense if you think this was a strategy at all on LSU's part. In the NFL, teams must sort of wait until the regular season is over to start the head coaching hiring process. Does college football need similar rules?
Look, that has been a conversation for a very long time. Look, coaches going to another university is not a new phenomenon, but now in this sort of transfer portal, NIL sort of era that we live in now, it's a lot harder right now. And one of the main reasons is because the transfer portal to be able to get a lot of these talented players starts in January, when a lot of these schools are playing in the college football playoff. So for somebody like Lane Kiffin, you have to go to LSU now to start remaking your entire roster in preparation for that transfer portal window to open up. Now, though, as you mentioned, you can't do this in the NFL, you can't do this in the NBA. Will we start to see more colleges start to put clauses in contracts that basically state coaches have to leave at the end of the term of their contracts? That might be something we have to start watching here, because look, Lane Kiffin is just the first of many coaches that this is going to happen to.
Baker, last question. I just want to let you know the answer to this question will affect your future on this fine broadcast.
Oh, no.
Does the University of Miami deserve a spot in the college playoffs this year?
Oh, Tom, not only do they deserve it, they need to win it. Does that get me on this thing for the rest of the year?
No, you have a lifetime guarantee now. I like your answer. But in all honesty, do you think they make it? I mean, they're the team that is being debated on whether they make it or not this year.
Look, the ACC is going to be really interesting, given the fact that Duke is going to be playing for that conference title in that championship game. But yes, absolutely, Miami, just based on the season that they've had, the best team in the ACC, and they absolutely should be making it.
All right, Baker Machado, you heard it here, buddy. I will see you in the future, man. I like to hear that. Still ahead on Top Story, we'll have Global Watch. We'll take a look at what's happening in Sri Lanka and that deadly cyclone. The search is on for hundreds that are still missing tonight. And Pope Leo on the ground in the Middle East, the reception he received from Christians in Lebanon. Molly Hunter takes us there. That's next. We're back now with the latest stop on Pope Leo's first trip abroad. Massive crowds turning up to greet him in Lebanon, which has the largest Christian population in the Middle East. The American-born Pope delivering a message of unity as he tries to energize young Christians in the region. Molly Hunter is in Lebanon for us.
Tonight, arriving in his open-air Pope-mobile, Pope Leo greeting 15,000 young people.
Dear young people of Lebanon, peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum.
A Lebanese choir belting out Christian hymns and prayers to an enthusiastic audience. The American Pope's visit to this small, diverse Middle Eastern country is centered on interfaith unity. Lebanon boasts 18 official faiths and sects, a fine line for the new pope to walk. Earlier today, meeting leaders from the Muslim, Druze, and Christian communities planting an olive tree together on the green line that once divided the Muslim West and Christian East in the Civil War. Leo urged them to be builders of peace. We waited with the crowds as the pontiff drove past.
You hear that excitement? There he is, the American Pope, driving right through the center of Beirut.
It's so overwhelming. 17-year-old Rana Nahul was ecstatic.
Can you share with us, what does it feel like right now to be a young Christian in Lebanon?
I feel like I'm a part of a movement. I'm part of change, because there's a lot of Christians communities on social media, on the streets, in the churches, and I'm so glad to be part of this.
18-year-old Joey Tuma had a Vatican flag wrapped around his shoulders.
I felt goosebumps all of my body. It's something special. Look at this. It's giving us hope that we're not in danger, and he will try to help us. It's a message for us to stay in that country.
Because so many young people are leaving, and so many Christians are leaving.
Yes, I hope they can stay in this country and give it a push forward.
And for twins, Christian influencers Giovanni and Charbel Latif, that's their core mission.
I am still very hopeful, and because I see it with my own eyes, of how much Christianity is still alive in our lands.
They were in the crowd at tonight's event. They run the social media handle Eastern Christians with nearly 700,000 followers.
Being born into this very beautiful religious country is a very honor for us. You realize how beautiful this is and how you want to fight to keep these traditions and cultures and this beautiful identity living, and how you want to tell the whole world about it.
Yeah, when you're born a Christian in this East and the Middle East, you're born with this responsibility too.
And tonight, the first American Pope offering a pep talk to their generation.
You have the enthusiasm to change the course of history.
And with that, Molly Hunter joins us tonight from Beirut. And Molly, the Pope is not done, right? Set to preside over Mass in front of a huge crowd tomorrow as well?
Tom, that's right. His final event before leaving Lebanon will be a Mass on Beirut's waterfront, and estimates for the crowd size are about 150,000 to 200,000 people. The chairs already set up. Of course, Tom, that is also the site of a major disaster in Lebanon's history 5 years ago, a chemical explosion that killed more than 200 people. And before the Mass tomorrow, Tom, Pope Leo will take a moment for silent prayer with the families and victims of that blast, also taking the opportunity to get that story back in the headlines. Tom?
Okay, Molly Hunter for us. Molly, we thank you. Now to top stories, global watch, and we're going to start in Sri Lanka, where more than 350 people are dead after a cyclone devastated the country. Authorities say crews are searching for hundreds of people still missing. The storm unleashing floods and landslides, forcing tens of thousands into temporary shelters. Rescuers now scrambling to clear roads and deliver aid to hard-hit communities. And an update on that deadly fire at a high-rise complex in Hong Kong. Investigators say some of the netting that covered scaffolding used during renovations were not up to fire safety codes. Authorities also announcing today they arrested 13 people for suspected manslaughter in connection with the massive fire that killed at least 151 people. And the World Health Organization now recommending GLP-1 drugs as a way to help adults manage obesity. It marks a major shift in the way the UN agency has framed treatment options. The new guidelines state medications alone cannot solve global obesity, but the WHO says that drugs can be part of a long-term treatment strategy, along with healthy diets and exercise. Okay, back here at home, a new Netflix docuseries about Sean Diddy Combs is making headlines for its never-before-seen footage of the music mogul in the days before his arrest. Now, Combs is threatening legal action against the streamer for airing the unauthorized footage. Behind the series is Combs' longtime rap rival 50 Cent and director Alexandria Stapleton, who sat down with NBC News' Chloe Malas ahead of tonight's release.
Tonight, Netflix releasing never-before-seen video of Sean Diddy Combs filmed just days before his arrest on charges of sex trafficking and racketeering in 2024. The footage is part of a 4-part docuseries, Sean Combs: The Reckoning, premiering Tuesday. Behind the explosive documentary is Combs' longtime rival, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, and director Alexandria Stapleton.
How did you get that footage of Diddy?
I figured most journalists would not disclose their sources.
The recordings give viewers an intimate look at Combs' mindset ahead of his criminal trial, even conversations with his legal team.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
So when this airs, that'll be the first time that his legal team, Diddy, that everybody knows that this footage is now seeing the light of day. Perhaps. What was he intending to use it for?
I have no idea what he was doing that for.
I mean, you know, you're talking about a man who films himself doing everything and has for decades. I think he wanted someone to be behind the scenes with him.
Combs' team firing back in a statement to NBC News today, saying the Netflix so-called documentary is a shameful hit piece and that they relied on stolen footage that was never authorized for release. His team sending a cease and desist to Netflix. Netflix referring NBC News to a statement from Stapleton in which she said they lawfully obtained the footage. After a nearly 8-week trial, Combs was acquitted of the more serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering and sentenced to 50 months in federal prison for 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs' team going on to slam Netflix for partnering with 50 Cent, who they say has been his longtime public adversary, something the Grammy winner denied, citing his own casting choices in his popular Starz franchise, Power.
One could watch this and think that you really hate Sean Combs.
Why would they be thinking that?
Because of the things that you post on Instagram,
Yeah,
because
this,
of the...
Look at this. And let's stop for a second and do say that I hated him enough to hire his kids. And we've never done anything to each other. So it's just competitive energy and things that you say about other artists while you're in hip-hop culture.
This documentary is one of several that has chronicled Combs' rise and fall, but Stapleton says theirs is different.
Yeah, there's a lot of new information. No one had ever really put it together like that before.
For 50 Cent, he says he feels a sense of obligation.
Well, you know, if I didn't say anything, you could assume that all of hip-hop culture is comfortable with his actions.
And Chloe Malas joins us now in studio. Chloe, you've seen the whole documentary. What else can you tell us about it?
So there's a lot more of this never-before-seen footage, Tom, of Combs having really private conversations with his legal team, and you really get a sense of his mindset ahead of his criminal trial, which is really fascinating for me because he never did any sit-down interviews ahead of the trial. So you finally get to see what his strategy was and how worried he was. But clearly, perhaps he didn't think that he was going to go to prison because he's filming this documentary. You're also going to hear from Aubrey O'Day. She was in the girl band Danity Kane as part of making the band. She has an explosive allegation against Combs. And then there's quite a bit that focuses on the murders of Biggie and Tupac, and people from Combs' inner circle raising a lot of questions. People are going to also have a lot to say about that.
All right, Chloe Malas, we look forward to that. When we come back, Prometheus shines again. Our up-close look at the makeover from one of Rockefeller Center's most iconic works of art. That's next. Finally tonight, a gilded makeover for Rockefeller Center's iconic statue. Workers painstakingly replacing the thousands of gold sheets that make up the shining skin of Prometheus. Here's NBC's Joe Fryer with an inside look at the restoration process, finishing up just in time for the holidays.
At the foot of Rock Center's famous Christmas tree, right next to the iconic ice rink, you'll find fire. A statue of Prometheus, the Greek titan known for giving humans fire. He's glowing after a makeover decades in the making.
What will Prometheus look like when this is all said and done? He'll look like he's been dunked in gold.
Mark Roussel, the project's principal conservator, is part of the crew painstakingly contorting to re-gild every nook and cranny using feather-like strips of gold.
There you go.
They're applying about 20,000 of these ultra-slender sheets.
We pick it up with a brush and we apply it like that.
With the price of gold skyrocketing, Prometheus's new coat costs more than $40,000. The sculpture, created in 1934 by Paul Manship, gets a shiny new shell every 25 years.
We're keeping the intent of the artist's original vision for this statue.
Bill Gauthier is a master gilder with decades of experience. He knows this golden Greek is an icon who photobombs countless pictures.
Which makes it even more important for me to work on it because I'm a native New Yorker.
No pressure.
Yeah. No, I had to bring my A game to this.
All right, go for it. With the final sheet added, they've now removed the scaffolding just in time to light the tree towering overhead, truly making the season bright. Joe Fryer, NBC News.
All right, that does it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.